A young cowboy lost in hostile territory, desperate for water, discovers he's not alone in a storm-battered cave. A wounded native girl, eyes burning with hatred, an enemy by birth, by history, by blood. Two worlds that should never meet, forced into tense silence. But when dawn breaks, an impossible choice emerges that will destroy everything he knows and ignite a love that defies two nations. Will survival turn enemies into something neither world can accept? Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this journey reaches. The storm hit without warning. Ethan Cole had seen weather turn mean before. Every cowboy worth his salt had. But this was different. The sky didn't just darken. It turned the color of old bruises, purple and sick. Wind came screaming across the open plain like something alive and angry, bending the grass flat, whipping dust into blinding sheets. Thunder rolled so deep it felt like the earth itself was splitting open. "Ethan, get back here!" He twisted in his saddle, squinting through the chaos. The rest of the crew was already pulling their cattle into a tight bunch, circling up the way his father had taught him years ago. Jack Morrison, the trail boss, was waving frantically, his hat already gone, his face raw and red from wind. But Ethan's section of the herd had spooked bad. 6 steers had broken off, stampeding west toward a line of rocks and scrub that marked the edge of what his people called safe land. Beyond that was territory they didn't talk about much, except in warnings. "I got him!" Ethan shouted back, though the wind tore his words away before they reached anyone. He kicked his horse hard, chasing after the panicked cattle. His father's voice echoed in his head, harsh and familiar. "You want to prove you're not useless? Then don't lose a single damn head." So he didn't think. He just rode. The rain started as he cleared the rocks, fat, cold drops that hit like gravel. Within seconds, it became a wall of water soaking through his shirt, running into his eyes, turning the ground beneath his horse's hooves into slick mud. He couldn't see the crew anymore. Couldn't see much of anything except the dark shapes of the steers ahead, still running like the devil was on their heels. "Damn it, stop!" They didn't stop. Of course they didn't. He chased them for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 20 minutes. By the time they finally slowed, blown out and heaving, he had no idea where he was. The landscape had changed, more rocks, fewer trees, everything sharp and unfamiliar. He managed to turn the steers, started pushing them back the way he thought he'd come. That's when lightning struck close enough to smell. His horse screamed and reared. Ethan hit the ground hard, all the air punching out of his lungs. He rolled, gasping, tasting mud and copper. When he looked up, his horse was gone. The steers were gone. Everything was just rain and noise and darkness closing in fast. He staggered to his feet, ribs aching, and tried to get his bearings, but the storm had swallowed the world. No landmarks, no stars, no crew calling his name, just him, alone. "Okay," he said out loud, because the sound of his own voice was better than the silence underneath the thunder. "Okay, you've been lost before. Find shelter. Wait it out." His canteen was gone, must have fallen when he got thrown. His mouth was already dry despite the rain soaking everything else, and he knew that was fear more than thirst. He'd heard the stories about this land. Every ranch kid had. Stories about men who wandered in and didn't wander out. Stories about people who lived out here. People who didn't take kindly to intruders. He started walking, boots slipping in the mud, looking for anything that might keep him from drowning in the open. That's when he saw the canyon. It was a crack in the earth, narrow and deep. The kind of place you'd ride right past if you weren't looking. He half slid, half climbed down into it, using roots and rocks to keep from falling. The walls rose up on either side, cutting the wind, muffling the thunder. It felt like dropping into the belly of something old. At the bottom, there was a trickle of water running over smooth stone. Ethan dropped to his knees and drank. It tasted like minerals and cold and relief. He drank until his stomach hurt, then sat back on his heels, breathing hard. "All right," he muttered. "All right, not dead yet." The canyon twisted ahead, deeper into the rock. He followed it, hoping for an overhang, a dry spot, anything. The rain was still coming down, funneling between the canyon walls and streams. His clothes were plastered to his skin. His teeth started to chatter. Then he saw the cave. It wasn't big, just a dark hollow carved into the canyon wall, maybe 8 feet across. But it was dry inside, and right now that was all that mattered. He ducked through the entrance, relief flooding through him as the rain noise faded to a distant hiss. He stood there dripping, waiting for his eyes to adjust. The cave went back farther than he'd thought. The walls were smooth, water-carved, almost black in the shadows. There were marks on them, scratches, lines, shapes that might have been intentional or might have been nothing. And then he heard breathing, not his own. Ethan froze. It was coming from the back of the cave. Slow, ragged. The sound of something hurt. His hand went to his belt, but his knife was gone too, lost somewhere in the chaos. He had nothing, no weapon, no light, just his fists and a real bad feeling. "Who's there?" His voice cracked a little. He cleared his throat, tried again. "I don't want trouble. I'm just waiting out the storm." The breathing stopped. Silence stretched out, broken only by the rain outside. Then movement, a shadow shifting in the darkness. Ethan's heart kicked into a gallop. He took a step back, closer to the entrance, ready to bolt back into the storm if he had to. "Stay back," he said, louder this time. "I mean it." The shadow moved again, and this time he saw her. A girl, no, woman. Hard to tell age in the dark, but she was small, wiry, wrapped in something that might have been leather or hide. Her hair was long and tangled, her face pale except for a dark smear across her cheek that could have been mud or blood. And her eyes. Even in the dimness, he could see her eyes. Dark. Fixed on him. Full of something that made his stomach twist. Hate. She said something in a language he didn't know. The words were sharp, bitten off, like she was spitting them at him. "I don't..." Ethan raised his hand slowly. "I don't understand." She spoke again, louder this time, her voice rough, like she hadn't used it in a while. Still, nothing he recognized. But he didn't need a translation to hear the warning in it. She shifted, and that's when he saw the blood. It was soaked into the hide covering her side, dark and wet. Her left arm hung strange, and when she moved, her face twisted with pain she was trying to hide. "You're hurt," he said, though he felt stupid saying it. Her lips pulled back from her teeth. Not a smile, a snarl. They stared at each other. Thunder rolled overhead, deep and long. The rain kept hammering down. The cave suddenly felt a lot smaller than it had a minute ago. Ethan's mind raced. He knew where he was now, or at least he knew what this meant. The stories weren't just stories. There were people out here. People whose land he was trespassing on. People who had every reason to hate him and everyone who looked like him. And he was trapped in a cave with one of them. She said something else, quieter this time. Her hand moved to her side, pressing against the wound. Her face went gray. "Look," Ethan said carefully. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just need to wait out the storm, and then I'll go. All right?" She didn't answer, just watched him with those burning eyes. He stayed near the entrance. She stayed in the back. The distance between them felt like a chasm. Minutes passed. The storm showed no signs of stopping. If anything, it was getting worse. Wind howled through the canyon outside, making the cave moan. Water started pooling near the entrance, creeping inward. Ethan sat down, back against the wall, knees pulled up. He was shivering now, the cold settling deep into his bones. His wet clothes weren't helping. He glanced at her. She'd slumped against the opposite wall, her breathing labored. The blood on her side looked worse, fresher. "That needs binding," he said, nodding toward her wound. She didn't respond. Didn't even look at him. "You're going to bleed out if you don't..." She spat something at him, the words like a slap. Ethan shut his mouth. More silence. He watched her from the corner of his eye. She was young, maybe his age, maybe younger. Her face was gaunt, hollow-cheeked, like she hadn't eaten in days. The hide she wore was torn and filthy. Whatever had happened to her, it hadn't been quick or kind. His pack was gone. His horse was gone. Everything useful was gone. But he still had his bandana, tucked into his belt, somehow still there. He pulled it out slowly, trying not to make sudden movements. "Here." He held it up so she could see. "For the bleeding." She stared at the fabric like it might bite her. "I'm just gonna..." He started to stand. She lunged. It wasn't much of a lunge, she was too weak, too hurt, but the intent was clear. She had a rock in her good hand, jagged and heavy, and she swung it at his head with everything she had left. Ethan jerked back, slammed into the cave wall. The rock missed his skull by inches, cracked against stone instead. "Jesus," She tried again, snarling, but her legs gave out. She collapsed onto her knees, gasping, the rock slipping from her fingers. Ethan stayed frozen against the wall, heart hammering. She knelt there, swaying, one hand pressed to her side. Blood seeped between her fingers now, dripping onto the cave floor. Her breathing came in short, sharp gasps. Then she looked up at him, and for just a second the hate in her eyes flickered into something else. Fear. Not of him. Of dying. Okay, Ethan said quietly. His own hands were shaking. Okay, I get it. You don't trust me. That's fair. He stayed where he was, giving her space. But you're bleeding bad, he continued, and I don't know what happened to you, but I'm not, he swallowed, I'm not whoever did that to you. She said nothing, just kept staring. I'm going to put this down. He held up the bandana again. Right here, you can use it or not, your choice. Slowly, carefully, he set the cloth on the ground between them. Then he backed up to the wall again, hands visible. She looked at the bandana. Back at him, back at the bandana. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. She didn't use it to bind the wound, she just held it, fingers clenched tight around the fabric, like she was trying to decide if it was a trick. The rain pounded on. Ethan's shivers got worse. His teeth chattered so hard he had to clench his jaw to stop it. The cold was sinking claws into him now, deep and mean. He pulled his knees tighter, wrapped his arms around himself. It didn't help much. Across the cave, the girl, woman, whoever she was fading. Her eyes kept drifting closed, her head nodding forward. She'd jerk herself awake, glare at him like she was daring him to try something, then start to drift again. You got a name? Ethan asked, just to break the silence. No answer. I'm Ethan, Ethan Cole. He laughed, but it came out shaky. Not that you care. Still nothing. I'm from a ranch about 2 days east of here. We're driving cattle up to... He stopped. Why was he telling her this? Doesn't matter. Point is, I'm not supposed to be here. I got separated from my crew, just bad luck. She opened her eyes fully then, and the look she gave him was so withering he actually felt it. Yeah, he muttered. I know. Trespassing. I get it. The storm raged on. Hours blurred together. Ethan dozed in fits, never fully asleep, always jolting awake at sounds that turned out to be nothing. Just wind, just rain, just his own paranoia. At some point, deep in the night, he woke to the sound of her moving. She was trying to stand, using the wall for support, her face twisted in agony. Her legs buckled. She bit back a sound that might have been a cry, turned it into a hiss between her teeth. Hey! Ethan started to get up. She shot him a look that stopped him cold. He watched, helpless, as she dragged herself toward the back of the cave, disappearing into the deeper shadows. He heard her collapse, heard her breathing, rough and uneven. Then nothing. You still alive back there? He called after a while. A long pause. Then a faint sound. Could have been a yes. Could have been go to hell. Ethan leaned his head back against the stone and closed his eyes. When he woke again, gray light was filtering into the cave. The storm had passed. The rain had stopped. Everything was still and dripping and exhausted. Ethan pushed himself to his feet, every muscle screaming. He felt like he'd been beaten with rocks. His clothes were still damp, clinging and cold, but the shivering had stopped at least. He looked toward the back of the cave. She was there, barely visible in the shadows, curled on her side, not moving. Hey! He called softly. Nothing. His chest tightened. He took a step closer. Hey, you all right? Still nothing. He moved forward, slow and careful, until he could see her clearly. She was breathing, shallow but steady. Her eyes were closed, her face slack with exhaustion. The bandana was pressed against her wound, soaked through with blood but still there, still trying to do its job. Ethan crouched a few feet away, studying her. In the daylight, what little of it reached this far into the cave, she looked even younger than he'd thought. Maybe 19, maybe less. Her skin was dark tan, sun-weathered, marked with old scars along her arms and one across her collarbone. Her hands were small but calloused, the nails broken and dirty. She looked like she'd been fighting for a long time. He should leave. That was the smart thing, the safe thing. The storm was over. He could find his way back, maybe catch up with the crew, pretend this never happened. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she looked, crumpled and broken in the shadows. Maybe it was the fact that she'd tried so hard to kill him and failed, and now she was just fragile, human. Or maybe it was because he'd spent his whole life doing what he was supposed to do, and it had never gotten him anywhere except lost. "All right," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "All right." He stood and walked to the cave entrance. Outside, the canyon was transformed. The rain had turned the trickle of water into a small stream, running clear and fast over the rocks. The air smelled clean, scrubbed raw by the storm. The sky was brightening, pale and washed out. He knelt by the stream and drank, then splashed water on his face. It was so cold it made his teeth ache. When he came back into the cave, she was awake. She'd pushed herself up against the wall, watching him with those dark, burning eyes. Her good hand was pressed to her side again. The bandana had fallen away, and fresh blood was seeping through. "You need help," Ethan said. She said something sharp in her language. "I don't know what that means," he said, "but I'm guessing it's some version of go away." She glared at him. "Look." He stopped a safe distance away. "I know you don't trust me. I wouldn't either. But that wound's going to kill you if it gets infected, and you can barely stand. So—" She interrupted him with another string of words, harsh and clipped. "Yeah, okay. I'm an enemy. I get it." He rubbed his face, frustrated. "But I'm also the only person here, so unless you got a better option, you're stuck with me." She stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, she turned her head away. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. Ethan took that as permission. He approached carefully, hands visible, moving like he would around a spooked horse. She tensed as he got closer, every muscle coiled tight, ready to bolt or fight despite the fact that she could barely sit upright. "I'm just going to look," he said softly. "That's all. Just look." She didn't stop him. He knelt beside her close enough now to see the wound clearly. It was a gash along her ribs, deep and ugly, the edges ragged like it had been made by something rough. Not a clean knife cut, maybe claws, maybe rocks. The skin around it was inflamed, hot to the touch when he carefully reached out. She flinched but didn't pull away. "This needs cleaning," he said. "You got anything? Medicine? I don't know what you—" She reached into the hide pouch at her waist and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in leaves. Her hands shook as she unwrapped it, revealing a paste. Dark green, thick, smelling like moss and something bitter. "That medicine?" he asked. She met his eyes, nodded once. "Okay. Can I—" She hesitated. Then, with visible effort, she handed it to him. Ethan took the paste carefully, like it was something precious. "This is going to hurt," he warned. She said something that sounded dismissive. He almost smiled. "Yeah, figured you've had worse." He worked as gently as he could, cleaning the wound with water from his soaked shirt, then applying the paste. She went rigid, her breath hissing through clenched teeth, but she didn't make a sound. Didn't pull away, just endured. When he finished, he sat back. "That's all I can do." She was pale, sweating, but she gave him a short nod. They sat in silence for a while. "You got people looking for you?" Ethan asked finally. Her expression darkened. She shook her head. "No one?" Another shake. "What happened?" She looked at him for a long time, like she was weighing something. Then she spoke, slow, halting, in his language this time. The words were heavily accented, the grammar broken, but understandable. "They leave me," she said. Her voice was rough, unused. "My people. They say wrong. Broken." She touched her side. "Punishment." Ethan's stomach turned. "They did that to you?" "No." She shook her head. "They leave me. Storm come. I fall. Rock." She gestured vaguely. "I crawl here." "They just left you to die?" Her jaw tightened. "Yes." "Why?" She looked away. "I not obey. I speak when I should not. I question." Her hands clenched. "They say I bring shame, so they take me far, leave me with nothing." Ethan felt something hot and uncomfortable rise in his chest. Anger, maybe, or recognition. I know something about that, he said quietly. She looked at him sharply. Not the same, he added quickly, but trying to prove yourself to people who don't want to see you. Yeah, I know that. She studied him, her expression unreadable. My father, Ethan continued, not sure why he was talking, but unable to stop. He thinks I'm useless. Soft. Not a real man. He laughed bitterly. That's why I chased those damn steers into the storm. Thought if I brought them back, he'd finally... He stopped. Doesn't matter. You lost, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I lost. She almost smiled. It was a terrible smile, sharp and humorless. We both lost. They sat with that for a while. Outside, the day was brightening. Birds started calling, tentative at first, then louder. Life coming back after the storm. I should go, Ethan said, though he didn't move. Try to find my crew. She said nothing. You gonna be all right? She shrugged. The gesture said everything. Does it matter? Ethan stood, brushing it off his pants. He walked to the entrance, looked out at the canyon. The sun was rising now, painting the rocks gold and amber. It was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. He could leave. Should leave. This wasn't his problem. But when he turned around, she was watching him with those dark eyes, and something in his chest twisted. Come with me, he said. She blinked. What? Come with me, he repeated. Back to somewhere. A town. A trading post. Somewhere you can get real help. She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Why? Because... He struggled for an answer. Because leaving you here is the same as killing you. You not know me. No, he agreed. But I know what it's like to be thrown away. She looked down at her hands, at the blood still staining them. They find me with you, she said slowly. They kill me. Your people. Then we avoid my people. They find you with me. They kill you too. Maybe, Ethan said. Probably, but... He took a breath. I'm tired of doing what I'm supposed to do. Aren't you? She was quiet for a long time. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, Ethan said. Okay. Then let's go. She tried to stand and nearly fell. He caught her, his arm around her waist, careful of the wound. She was light, too light, all bone and sinew and stubborn will. I can walk, she said. Sure you can. He didn't let go. She didn't pull away. They made it to the cave entrance together, step by painful step. The sunlight hit them both, warm and bright and full of a future neither of them could see. I am Kaya, she said quietly. He looked at her. Kaya. Yes. All right, Kaya. He adjusted his grip, taking more of her weight. Let's get you somewhere safe. She laughed, a short, bitter sound. No place safe. Not for me. Not for you now. Then we'll make one, Ethan said. She looked at him like he was crazy. Maybe he was. But as they stepped out of the cave together, into the canyon still dripping with yesterday's rain, into a world that would hate them both, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. And for now, lost and bleeding and hunted, that was enough. They didn't make it far that first day. Kaya's strength gave out before they'd even cleared the canyon. One moment she was walking, limping really, but upright, and the next her legs just folded. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground, but barely. I'm fine, she said through gritted teeth. You're not. I can walk. You just collapsed. She tried to push away from him, but her arms had no strength left. She sagged against him, breathing hard, her face gray beneath the tan. Ethan looked around. The canyon stretched ahead, all rock and sparse brush and nothing resembling shelter. Behind them, the cave was still visible, its dark mouth a reminder of where they'd started. They'd covered maybe half a mile. We need to stop, he said. No. Kaya. They find us. We die. Her words came out slurred, exhausted. Keep moving. You can't move. She closed her eyes, and for a second he thought she'd passed out, but then she spoke again, quieter. Leave me. Not happening. Stupid, she muttered. Yeah, probably. He half carried, half dragged her to an overhang where the canyon wall jutted out, creating a shallow depression barely deep enough to count as shelter. He eased her down, propping her against the rock, her head lolled to the side. Stay awake, Ethan said, more sharply than he meant to. Her eyes fluttered open. Why? Because I don't know if you'll wake up if you don't. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. You worry too much. And you don't worry enough. He sat beside her, close enough to feel her shivering. The sun was warm overhead, but she was cold, her skin clammy to the touch. Shock, maybe. Blood loss. Infection. He didn't know enough to tell the difference. His stomach growled, loud and insistent. He couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten. Before the storm, maybe. A lifetime ago. Kaya's eyes were closed again, her breathing shallow. Hey, Ethan said, nudging her shoulder gently. You got any food in that bag of yours? She didn't respond. He reached for the leather pouch at her waist, carefully, ready to pull back if she woke fighting, and opened it. Inside was the medicine paste, nearly gone now. A few strips of dried something that could have been meat or leather, hard to tell. A small knife with a bone handle, and a strange object wrapped in soft hide about the size of his palm. He unwrapped it carefully. It was a carving, a bird, wings spread, made from dark wood worn smooth by handling. Beautiful, in a simple way. Kaya's hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. He jumped, nearly dropping the carving. Her eyes were open, fierce despite the exhaustion. Mine, she said. I wasn't gonna... He stopped. I was just looking. She held his gaze for a long moment, then slowly released his wrist. Her hand trembled as she took the carving back, cradling it against her chest. Sorry, Ethan said quietly. She didn't answer, just held the bird, her thumb tracing the wings over and over like a prayer. They sat in silence. The sun climbed higher, beating down on the rocks, turning the canyon into an oven. Ethan's throat felt like sandpaper. He thought about the stream in the cave, the cold, clear water. Should have filled something before they left. There's water, Kaya said suddenly, as if reading his mind. Her voice was faint. East. Maybe, 2 hours walk. You know this area? She nodded slightly. We hunt here. Before. Your people? Yes. The word was hard, bitter. Can you make it 2 hours? She looked at him like he was an idiot. No. Then I'll go. You stay here. You get lost. I'll figure it out. No. She shifted, trying to sit straighter and failing. You go wrong way, you die. Land not kind to strangers. Then tell me which way. She studied him, clearly weighing whether he was smart enough to follow directions. East, she said finally. Follow canyon until it split. Take left path. You see red rocks. Go through them. Water on other side. Red rocks, Ethan repeated. Left path at the split. Got it. You get lost. I die here. I won't get lost. She gave him a look that said she didn't believe him, but she was too tired to argue. Ethan stood, brushing dust off his pants. I'll be back before dark. Maybe. Definitely. Bring your body back I use for food. He blinked, then realized she was joking. Sort of. I'll try not to die, he said. Good plan. He started walking, glancing back once. She was watching him, the carved bird still clutched in her hands. She looked small against the rock, fragile in a way that made his chest ache. Then he turned the corner and she was gone. The canyon did split, just like she'd said. He took the left path, trying to ignore the voice in his head that sounded suspiciously like his father. You're gonna get lost and die out here, boy, just like you deserve. The red rocks appeared after maybe an hour of walking. They rose up like jagged teeth, rust-colored and imposing, narrow gaps between them barely wide enough to squeeze through. Ethan picked the widest gap and pushed through, scraping his shoulders on the stone. On the other side was a basin, and in the center of it, water. Not a stream. A pool, maybe 20 feet across, fed by a spring that bubbled up from somewhere deep underground. The water was so clear he could see the sandy bottom, and when he knelt and cupped some in his hands, it tasted sweet and cold. He drank until he felt sick, then drank some more. Then he looked around for something to carry water in. There was nothing. No convenient gourds, no helpful containers lying around, just rocks and scrub, and his own stupidity for not thinking this through. He took off his shirt, still damp from the storm, stinking of sweat and mud, and soaked it in the pool. It would have to do. He wrung it out just enough that it wouldn't drip everywhere, then wrapped it carefully and started back. The sun was lower now, the shadows longer. He walked faster, trying to retrace his steps. The canyon all looked the same, rock and dust and more rock. He started to worry that he'd taken a wrong turn, that Kaya would die waiting for him, that he'd wander until the sun went down and something with teeth found him. Then he heard her voice. Took long enough. Relief flooded through him. He rounded the corner and there she was, exactly where he'd left her, looking pale and irritated. "Missed me?" he asked, trying for casual. "No." He knelt beside her and unfolded the shirt. "It's not much, but..." She grabbed it and pressed it to her mouth, drinking desperately. Water ran down her chin, soaking into her collar. When she finally pulled away, gasping, her eyes were brighter. "Better?" Ethan asked. She nodded. "You not die." "Told you." "Lucky." "I'll take it." She handed the shirt back. He wrung out a little more water into his mouth, then used what was left to wet his face and neck. The relief was almost painful. "We should keep moving," Kaya said. "You can barely sit up." "I can walk." "Kaya." "We stay here. We die slow." She looked at him, and there was something raw in her expression. "I not want to die slow." Ethan understood that. He helped her up, taking most of her weight. She was shaking, her skin too hot now instead of cold. Fever, probably. They made it another mile before the sun started to set. Kaya was fading fast, her steps dragging, her breathing ragged. Ethan was half carrying her at this point, his own exhaustion pulling at him like weights. "There," Kaya whispered, nodding weakly toward a cluster of rocks ahead. He didn't see anything special about them, but he trusted her. They stumbled into the formation and found a space between two large boulders sheltered on three sides. It wasn't much, but it would keep the wind off. He lowered Kaya to the ground as gently as he could. She curled onto her side, pulling her knees up, making herself small. Ethan sat with his back against the rock, every muscle screaming. His stomach was eating itself, his head pounded. But they were alive. "Tell me something," Kaya said into the gathering dark. "Like what?" "Anything. So I know you still there." Her voice was so quiet, he almost didn't hear it. "All right," Ethan said. He thought for a moment. "I had a dog once, when I was a kid. Big mutt, ugly as sin, meaner than hell to everyone except me." He smiled at the memory. "My father hated him, said he was useless, but the dog followed me everywhere, slept at the foot of my bed every night." "What happened to him?" "He got old. Died when I was 14. Ethan's throat tightened. "I cried for a week. My father said I was soft." Kaya was quiet. Then, "He wrong." "Maybe." "No maybe. He wrong." She shifted slightly. "Crying not soft. Crying is remembering, honoring." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "My people," she continued, her voice getting fainter. "We cry for our dead. We sing for them. We tell stories. So they not forgotten." She paused. "Your dog, you remember him?" "Yeah." "Then he not gone." Something broke loose in Ethan's chest. He had to look away, blinking hard. "You cry now?" Kaya asked. "No." "Liar." He laughed, the sound coming out wet. "Maybe a little." "Is okay," she said. "I not tell anyone." They fell silent again. The stars were coming out, brilliant and cold. Ethan had never seen so many. "Kaya?" No answer. "Kaya?" Still nothing. Panic spiked through him. He reached over, found her shoulder, shook it gently. She made a sound, annoyed, half asleep. "What?" "Just checking. I'm not dead yet." "Good." "Wake me again. I kill you." "Noted." He listened to her breathing, making sure it stayed steady. When he was satisfied she wasn't about to stop, he let himself relax a fraction. Sleep came in pieces, broken and restless. Every sound jerked him awake. Wind, animals, his own imagination. But nothing came for them. The night stayed quiet, and when the sun finally rose, they were both still breathing. Kaya woke first. He felt her moving, heard her sharp intake of breath as pain reminded her where she was. "Morning," Ethan said. She didn't answer, just pushed herself upright with visible effort. Her face was drawn, the fever still burning in her eyes. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like I died yesterday." "But you didn't." "Unfortunately." He almost smiled. "You're in a good mood. I always like this." "Lucky me." They sat for a while, neither moving. The sun climbed, heating the rocks, making the air shimmer. "We need food," Ethan said finally. Kaya nodded. "I show you." "You can't walk." "I can sit. I can talk. I show you." She pointed north toward a line of scrubby trees in the distance. "There. You find roots. Like this." She drew a shape in the dirt with her finger, something round with thin tendrils. "Roots," Ethan repeated doubtfully. "You dig. You eat. Not taste good, but keep you alive. Anything else?" "Birds. If you fast." She gave him a skeptical look. "You fast?" "I can be fast." What's that mean?" "Mean you probably not fast." He stood, brushing off his pants. "I'll prove you wrong. I wait here. Forever, maybe." He left her there, muttering to herself in her own language, and headed for the trees. His stomach was cramping now, desperate for anything. The roots were right where she said they'd be, buried shallow beneath the base of the scrubby trees. He dug them up with his hands, dirt caking under his fingernails. They were ugly things, pale and twisted, but when he bit into one, it was starchy and slightly sweet. He ate 3 right there, barely chewing, then dug up more to bring back. He tried for birds, too, creeping through the brush like he'd seen hunters do. But Kaya was right. He wasn't fast enough. They scattered before he got within 10 feet. When he got back, arms full of roots, Kaya was leaning against the rock with her eyes closed. She looked worse than when he'd left. "Got food," he said. She opened her eyes. "No birds." "No birds." "I tell you." Yeah. He handed her a root. She bit into it, chewed slowly, swallowed with effort. "Terrible. Keeps you alive, though." "Maybe not worth it." They ate in silence, forcing down the tasteless roots because there was nothing else. When they finished, Kaya tried to stand and nearly fell. Ethan caught her, steadied her. "We rest more," he said. "No." "Kaya." "We close now," she said. "Trading post. Half day, maybe less." "You know where we are?" She nodded. "I know." "And this trading post, they'll help us?" She laughed, sharp and humorless. "No, they hate me. Hate my people. But they trade. You have anything?" Ethan patted his pockets. Empty. "No." "Then we hope they kind." She paused. "They not kind." "Great." They started walking. Kaya leaned heavily on him, her breathing labored. Every step seemed to cost her, but she kept going, stubborn and half-dead and refusing to quit. The land changed as they walked. Less rock, more scrub. The occasional tree. Signs of civilization, if you could call it that. A trail worn into the earth. Hoofprints. And finally, in the distance, smoke. The trading post was a collection of rough buildings clustered around a well, surrounded by a fence that had seen better days. A few horses were tied up outside, and Ethan could hear voices, men, laughing about something. Kaya stopped at the edge of the clearing, her whole body tense. "Maybe I wait here," she said. "You need medicine." "They see me, they—" She stopped, jaw tight. "I'll go first," Ethan said. "Feel them out." "If they come for me." "They won't." "You not know that." "Then I'll make sure they don't." She looked at him like he was crazy. "Why you do this?" "Do what?" "Risk yourself. For me." Ethan didn't have a good answer for that. So he just said, "Because I said I would." He helped her to a spot behind a low rise where she'd be hidden from view, then started toward the trading post alone. His heart was hammering. He had no money, no weapons, no plan, just hope, which felt like a pretty thin thing to bet on. The main building was a long structure with a sagging porch and a door that hung crooked on its hinges. Ethan pushed it open and stepped inside. The place smelled like tobacco and sweat and old leather. 3 men sat at a table near the back, playing cards. They looked up when he entered, their conversation dying. "Help you?" one of them said. He was older, bearded, with eyes that missed nothing. "I'm looking for supplies," Ethan said. "Medicine, if you've got it." "You hurt?" "Not me, He hesitated. "My friend." The men exchanged glances. "Your friend got a name?" another one asked. "Does it matter?" "Might." Ethan's hand itched for a weapon he didn't have. "We just need medicine. I can work for it. I'm good with horses. I can—" "Where you from, boy?" the bearded man interrupted. "East, Morrison Ranch. Long way from home. Got separated from my crew in the storm." The man leaned back in his chair, studying him. "And this friend of yours, he lost too?" "Something like that. Funny thing," the man said slowly. "We don't get many visitors out here, and when we do, they're usually running from something or someone." "I'm not running." "No?" The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then what are you doing?" Before Ethan could answer, the door opened behind him. He turned, and his stomach dropped. Standing in the doorway were 2 men he recognized. Ranch hands from a spread north of his father's land. He'd seen them at cattle sales, heard stories about them. Nothing good. And they were staring at him like they'd just found a prize. "Well, hell," one of them said, grinning. "Ethan Cole, your daddy's been looking for you." Ethan's mind raced. "I got separated in the storm. I was just—" "We know what you were doing," the man interrupted. He stepped inside, his partner following. "Question is, where's the girl?" The room went very quiet. "What girl?" Ethan said. "Don't play stupid. We tracked you from the canyon. You and that native bitch." Rage flared hot in Ethan's chest. "Watch your mouth." The man laughed. "There he is, the soft boy playing hero." He moved closer. "Where is she, Cole?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "We saw the tracks. 2 sets. One heavy, one light. You're a terrible liar." The bearded man stood up from the table. "This true, boy? You traveling with one of them?" Ethan didn't answer. "Because if you are," the man continued, "you just brought a world of trouble to my door. Those people, they're not welcome here, and anyone who helps them isn't either." "She's hurt," Ethan said. "She just needs medicine." "And I need her gone," the man said flatly, "along with you." The ranch hands were moving now, flanking him. Ethan backed up, but there was nowhere to go. "Make this easy," one of them said. "Tell us where she is, and maybe we let you walk away." "No." "Boy," I said no. The punch came fast, catching him in the gut. Ethan doubled over, gasping. A hand grabbed his hair, yanked his head back. "Last chance," the man said. Ethan spat blood. "Go to hell." The second punch broke his nose. He felt the crunch, tasted copper flooding his mouth. The room spun. Then a voice cut through the chaos, sharp, furious, and unmistakably Kaya's. "Let him go." Everyone froze. Kaya stood in the doorway, barely upright, one hand pressed to her side. Her other hand held the small bone knife from her pouch. It looked ridiculous against 5 armed men, but she held it like it was enough. Her eyes found Ethan's. "You stupid," she said. "Yeah," he managed. "I know." The ranch hand holding him let go, stepping back. They all stared at Kaya like she was something that had crawled out of a nightmare. "Well," the bearded man said quietly, "guess that settles it." One of the ranch hands drew his gun. The metallic click of the hammer being pulled back was the loudest sound Ethan had ever heard. "Don't," he said, the word coming out thick through the blood in his mouth. He stepped forward, putting himself between the gun and Kaya. The ranch hand laughed. "You gonna stop me, Cole?" "If I have to." "Boy, you can barely stand." That was true. Ethan's legs felt like water. His nose was screaming, and he could feel blood dripping down his chin. But he didn't move. "She's done nothing to you," he said. "She's breathing," the man replied. "That's enough." Kaya said something in her language, low and harsh. The knife in her hand didn't waver, even though Ethan could see her shaking. "What'd she say?" one of the other men asked. "Probably cursing us," the bearded trader said. He hadn't moved from his spot, just watching everything with those cold, calculating eyes. They do that. I say, Kaya spoke in broken English, her voice cutting. You all cowards. Hide behind guns, like children. The ranch hand's face went red. You got some nerve. Enough, the bearded man said sharply. Everyone stopped. He looked at Ethan, then at Kaya, then back at Ethan. You really willing to die for her? Yes. Why? Ethan didn't have a good answer for that. Or maybe he did, but it was too new, too raw to put into words. So he just said, because it's right. The man snorted, right doesn't mean much out here, boy. You should know that. Maybe, but it means something to me. The silence stretched. The ranch hand's gun was still pointed at Kaya, but his eyes kept flicking to the trader, waiting for permission. Well, the trader said finally, this is a problem. He walked closer, boots heavy on the wooden floor. See? I run a business here, and my business depends on staying neutral. I can't afford to take sides. Then don't, Ethan said. Just let us go. Can't do that either. Word gets out I helped one of them. I lose customers. Might even get burned out. He shook his head. No, son. Best thing for everyone is if you walk away and leave her here. Not happening. Then you're a fool. Probably. The trader studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. You know what? I almost believe you mean it. He turned to the ranch hands. Put the gun down, Dalton. But put it down. Dalton lowered the gun, looking confused and angry. We just letting them go? I didn't say that. The trader walked to a cabinet against the wall, pulled out a bottle and 2 glasses. He poured amber liquid into both. Here's how this is gonna work. You two get out of my post. I give you 1 hour head start. After that, he shrugged. After that, these boys do what they want, and I don't see nothing. That's murder, Ethan said. That's survival. The trader drank from 1 glass, then set the other on the table. Hour starts now. Ethan looked at Kaya. She was barely standing, her face gray, fresh blood seeping through the hide at her side. An hour wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough, but it was all they had. Come on, he said, moving toward her. The ranch hands parted to let them through, but the looks on their faces promised pain. Dalton leaned close as Ethan passed. We're going to enjoy this, he whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He just took Kaya's arm, supporting her weight, and walked out of that place as fast as her failing strength would allow. The sun was bright outside, almost blinding after the dimness of the trading post. Ethan's eyes watered, or maybe that was from the broken nose. Hard to tell. You should leave me, Kaya said as soon as they were clear of the building. We've been over this. I slow you down, you die because of me. Then we die together. She made a frustrated sound. You are impossible. You already knew that. They moved as quickly as they could, which wasn't quick at all. Kaya was fading fast, each step harder than the last. Blood was running freely down her side now, soaking into her clothing, dripping onto the ground. A trail anyone could follow. Ethan's mind raced. An hour. They needed distance, but Kaya couldn't run. They needed to hide, but there was nowhere, just open land and scattered rocks. They needed a miracle, but those seemed in short supply. There, Kaya gasped, pointing with her free hand. He looked. In the distance, maybe a quarter-mile away, was a rocky outcrop rising from the flat earth like a broken tooth. Not much, but better than nothing. They stumbled toward it, Kaya's breathing getting worse with every step. Halfway there, her legs gave out completely. Ethan caught her, but they both went down hard, hitting the dirt in a tangle of limbs. Sorry, Kaya whispered. Don't be. He got his arms under her, lifted her bodily. She weighed almost nothing, all bone and sinew and dying light. Just hold on. Ethan, hold on. He carried her the rest of the way, his own strength failing, his back screaming. The rocks rose up around them, creating a maze of narrow passages and hidden spaces. He picked one at random, ducking into a crevice barely wide enough for his shoulders, and laid Kaya down as gently as he could. She was unconscious now, her skin burning with fever. The wound at her side looked worse than ever, inflamed, oozing, probably infected. The medicine she'd had was long gone. Ethan pressed his hand to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. It soaked through his fingers, warm and slick. Come on, he said, though she couldn't hear him. Don't quit now, not after everything. She didn't respond. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid movements. He looked around the crevice. It was a dead end, nowhere to run if they were found. But it was sheltered, hidden from casual view. If he was lucky, the ranch hands would ride past without seeing them. If he was lucky, he'd never been particularly lucky. Time moved strange. Could have been 20 minutes, could have been 50. The sun beat down, turning the rocks into an oven. Ethan's throat was dust. His nose had stopped bleeding, but it hurt like hell, and he was pretty sure it was broken. His hands were still covered in Kaya's blood. Then he heard them. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses, moving slow and deliberate, searching. Ethan's heart kicked into overdrive. He looked at Kaya, still unconscious, then at the opening of the crevice. If he stayed quiet, maybe they'd pass by. Maybe they wouldn't look this close. The hoofbeats stopped. See those rocks? Dalton's voice carrying on the still air. Good place to hide. Could be anywhere in there, another voice said. Then we flush 'em out. Ethan heard them dismounting, heard boots on stone. They were coming. He had nothing. No weapon. No plan. No way to fight 5 armed men and protect Kaya at the same time. But he wasn't going to hide. He stood, squared his shoulders, and walked out to meet them. They were spread out among the rocks, guns drawn, looking like men on a hunt, which he supposed they were. Dalton saw him first and grinned. There you are. Where's the girl? Gone, Ethan lied. Bullshit. We followed the blood trail right to these rocks. She went the other way, told me to lead you off. Dalton's grin widened. You're still a terrible liar, Cole. He raised his gun. Last chance. Where is she? Ethan didn't answer. Fine. We'll find her ourselves, after we deal with you. Wait, Ethan said. An idea was forming, stupid, desperate, but it was all he had. You want her that bad? Then let's make it fair. Fair? A fight. You and me. I win, you leave. You win, you get what you came for. Dalton laughed. You can't be serious. You called me soft, right? Said I wasn't a real man. Prove it. Beat me yourself, no guns. The other ranch hands were grinning now, enjoying this. Dalton holstered his gun, cracking his knuckles. All right, boy, let's see what you got. Ethan knew he was going to lose. Dalton was bigger, older, meaner. But if he could buy time, tire him out, maybe Kaya would wake up. Maybe she could slip away while they were distracted. Maybe. Dalton came at him fast, swinging hard. Ethan ducked, felt the fist whistle past his ear. He countered with a jab to Dalton's ribs, but it was like hitting wood. Dalton didn't even flinch. The next punch caught Ethan in the jaw, snapping his head back. Stars exploded across his vision. He staggered, barely kept his feet. That the best you got? Dalton taunted. Ethan spat blood. Just getting started. It was a lie. He was already done. But he came at Dalton anyway, swinging wild, connecting with nothing but air. Dalton caught him with an uppercut that lifted him off his feet. He hit the ground hard, tasted dirt and copper. Stay down, Dalton said. Ethan pushed himself up. His vision was swimming, his ears ringing. Everything hurt. I said stay down. No. Dalton kicked him in the ribs. Something cracked. Ethan curled around the pain, gasping. You're just making this worse, Dalton said, standing over him. Good, Ethan managed. What? Means, he coughed, tasted more blood. Means I'm still here. Dalton kicked him again and again. Ethan stopped trying to get up, just focused on protecting his head, on breathing, on staying conscious. Enough, one of the other men said. You're going to kill him. So what? Boss said he wanted to talk to the boy's father first, work out a price. That stopped Dalton. He stepped back, breathing hard. Fine, but I'm finding that girl. He turned toward the rocks, toward the crevice where Kaya was hidden. Ethan tried to stand and collapsed. No! But Dalton was already walking away, the other men following. They spread out, searching methodically. It wouldn't take long. Ethan dragged himself forward, inch by agonizing inch. His ribs were on fire. Something was wrong with his left arm, but he kept moving. He heard Dalton's shout of triumph. Found her! No, 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 no. He got his feet under him somehow and staggered toward the sound. The world tilted and spun, but he kept going. Dalton was standing at the crevice entrance, looking down at Kaya's unconscious form. Well, well, sleeping beauty. Don't touch her, Ethan said, the words slurring. Dalton glanced back at him. Or what? You gonna stop me? Yes. You can't even stand. That was true. Ethan was swaying, held upright by pure, stubborn will, but he took a step forward anyway. Then another. Dalton laughed. This is just sad. He reached down toward Kaya, and that's when she moved. Her eyes snapped open. The bone knife flashed up, catching Dalton across the forearm. He screamed, jerking back. Blood welled from the cut. Kaya tried to rise, to press the advantage, but her strength was gone. She collapsed back, the knife falling from her hand. Dalton clutched his bleeding arm, his face twisted with rage. You bitch! He drew his gun. Ethan didn't think. He just moved, throwing himself forward, crashing into Dalton. They went down together in a tangle of limbs. The gun went off, deafening, the bullet ricocheting off stone. They grappled on the ground, Dalton trying to bring the gun around, Ethan fighting to keep it pointed away. His broken ribs screamed, his vision grayed at the edges. Then Kaya was there somehow, impossibly. She had the knife again, and she drove it into Dalton's shoulder. He howled, released the gun. Ethan grabbed it, rolled away, came up with the weapon pointed at the other ranch hands. They'd drawn their own guns, but they hesitated, seeing Ethan armed. Back off, Ethan said. His voice didn't sound like his own, raw, desperate. You're outnumbered, boy, one of them said. Don't care. You can't shoot all of us. Maybe not, but I'll get one or two. He aimed at the nearest man. Want to find out which? They didn't move, but they didn't lower their guns either. Standoff. Dalton was on his knees, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Kill them, he snarled. Both of them. Now. Nobody moved. I said, shut up, Dalton, the nearest ranch hand said. He was looking at Kaya, at the knife still in her hand, at the way she was swaying but refusing to fall. This ain't worth dying for. The hell it isn't. It's a girl. A half-dead girl. And I don't fancy getting shot over her. You're all cowards, Dalton spat. Maybe, but we're alive cowards. The man holstered his gun. You want her so bad you get her yourself. The others hesitated, then followed suit, putting their weapons away. Dalton stared at them, betrayed, furious. You'll pay for this, he said to Ethan. Your whole family will pay. Maybe, Ethan said, but not today. He kept the gun pointed at them as they mounted their horses. Dalton needed help getting into his saddle, still bleeding, still cursing. They rode off slow, looking back several times like they might change their minds. When they were finally out of sight, Ethan's legs gave out. He sat down hard, the gun tumbling from his grip. Kaya collapsed beside him. They sat there in the dust, bleeding and broken, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then Kaya said, You fight terrible. Ethan laughed. It hurt. I know. Like child. Thanks. But you fight anyway. She looked at him, and there was something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Why? I told you, because it's right. No. She shook her head slightly. That not why. Not anymore. He met her gaze. She was right. It wasn't about right or wrong anymore. It was something else, something he didn't have words for yet. I don't know, he said finally. Liar. But she said it gently. They sat in silence, catching their breath. The sun was starting to sink, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. We can't stay here, Ethan said eventually. I know. Can you walk? No. Then I'll carry you. You can barely walk yourself. Then we'll crawl. She almost smiled. You are a crazy person. You're just figuring that out now? This time she did smile, just a little. It transformed her face, made her look younger, made her look alive. Ethan stood, wincing at the protest from his ribs. He helped Kaya up, got her arm around his shoulders. They started walking, slow and painful, away from the trading post, away from the ranch hands, away from everything they'd ever known. Where we go? Kaya asked. I don't know. Somewhere safe. No place safe. Not for us. Then we find one. Or we make one. She was quiet for a while, then, "You know what you give up? For me?" "Yeah. Your family, your home, your people." "I know. And you not care?" Ethan thought about that. Thought about his father's disappointed face, his mother's silent acceptance, the crew that had left him behind without a second thought. Thought about all the years spent trying to prove himself to people who would never see him. "No," he said. "I don't care." "You say that now. Later, you regret." "Maybe. But I'll regret it with you, so—" He shrugged. "Could be worse." Kaya made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "You are impossible." "You said that already." "Worth saying again." They walked until the sun was gone and the stars came out, brilliant and cold. Ethan had no idea where they were going, no plan beyond putting distance between them and danger. But Kaya was alive. He was alive. And for now, that was enough. They made camp in a small depression surrounded by rocks, using Kaya's last bit of strength to gather dry brush for a fire. Ethan got it started on the third try, using friction and patience and desperation. The flames caught, small but steady. Kaya sat close to the fire, shivering despite the heat. Her fever was worse. Ethan could see it in the glassy shine of her eyes, the tremor in her hands. "You need medicine," he said. "No medicine. There has to be something, another trading post, a town. Town worse than trading post." She coughed, the sound wet and painful. "They see me. They kill on sight." "Then what do we do?" She looked at him across the fire. "We hope I'm strong enough to live." "And if you're not?" "Then you leave my body somewhere beautiful, somewhere with water and trees, so my spirit can rest." "Caius, promise me. You're not going to die. Promise." He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that they'd find help, that everything would be fine, but the words stuck in his throat. "I promise," he said quietly. She nodded, satisfied. Then she reached into her pouch and pulled out the wooden bird, the one she'd been holding in the cave. She held it for a moment, running her thumb over the smooth wings, then held it out to him. "Take this." "I can't." "Take it." When he hesitated, she pressed it into his hand. "My mother make this, before she die, is all I have of her." "Then you should keep it." "If I die, it die with me. If you keep it—" She swallowed. "Then part of me still here, part of her too." Ethan looked down at the carving. It was beautiful in its simplicity, every detail perfect, made with love and care and time. "I won't need it," he said, "because you're going to live." "Maybe, but take it anyway." He closed his fingers around the bird, felt the weight of what she was giving him. Not just a carving, a legacy, a trust. "All right," he said. "But you're getting it back when you're better." "When I better," she agreed. They sat in silence, watching the fire. Ethan's whole body ached. His ribs were definitely broken. His nose was swollen and throbbing. His hands were cut and bruised from the fight, but he felt lighter than he had in years. "Ethan," Kaya said softly. "Yeah?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me, not just—" She gestured vaguely. "Not just enemy, not just problem, but me." Something cracked open in his chest. "Same to you." She smiled, small and sad. "We are broken people, I think." "Yeah, we are. But maybe—" She paused, searching for words in a language that wasn't hers. "Maybe broken things fit together better, because they understand." "Maybe," Ethan said. They fell silent again. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Kaya's eyes were drifting closed, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. Ethan added more brush to the fire, keeping it fed, keeping the darkness at bay. When she was asleep, breathing rough but steady, he allowed himself to think about what came next. They couldn't go back. Not to his world, not to hers. They were exiled from both, marked and hunted. The ranch hands would spread the word. His father would hear what he'd done. There'd be a price on his head, probably. And Kaya, she'd been cast out once already. Coming back would mean death. So they had to go forward, into the unknown. into places neither of them had maps for. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like freedom. He looked at Kaya, curled on her side by the fire, the carved bird still clutched in his hand. She'd lost everything: family, home, belonging, and she'd still chosen to fight, still chosen to live. He could do no less. The fire burned low. Ethan fed it one more time, then lay down on the other side, close enough to the flames to feel their warmth. He kept the gun within reach, just in case. His last thought before sleep took him was simple. Tomorrow, we keep going. He woke to Kaya's hand on his shoulder, shaking him urgently. Ethan, wake up! He jerked upright, immediately alert, reaching for the gun. What? Someone come. He listened. At first he heard nothing but the wind and his own breathing, then, faint but growing louder, voices and hoofbeats. How many? He asked. I don't know. 3? Maybe 4. Ethan's mind raced. They couldn't run. Kaya couldn't move fast enough. They couldn't hide. The fire had probably been visible for miles. They couldn't fight. He had one gun with maybe 6 bullets, and he was already half dead from the last fight. Maybe they passed by, Kaya whispered. They didn't pass by. 3 riders crested the rise, silhouetted against the dawn sky. They stopped when they saw the fire, the 2 figures huddled near it. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then one of the riders dismounted and started walking toward them. Ethan raised the gun, aiming as steady as he could with shaking hands. That's far enough, he called out. The figure stopped. Easy, son. We're not here to hurt you. It was a woman's voice. That surprised him enough that he hesitated. Who are you? He asked. Name's Sarah Tomlin. I run a way station about 10 miles west of here. She held up her hands, showing they were empty. Heard there was trouble at Harker's post. Figured I'd take a look. We don't want trouble, Ethan said. Looks like you already found plenty. She nodded at Kaya. She needs help. How do I know you're not with them? You don't. But if I was, you'd already be dead. She took a step closer. Let me see her. Ethan didn't lower the gun. Why would you help us? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because a long time ago, someone helped me when nobody else would, and I made a promise to do the same when I could. She met his eyes. So, you gonna shoot me, or you gonna let me help? Ethan looked at Kaya. She was watching Sarah with exhausted, wary eyes, but she gave him a small nod. He lowered the gun. Sarah came forward slowly, kneeling beside Kaya. She examined the wound with practiced efficiency, her face grim. This is bad, she said. Infected. She needs proper care. Can you, at my way station. I got medicine there, clean water, a real bed. She looked up at him. But we need to move now. She doesn't have much time left. Ethan wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that someone, somewhere would help them without wanting something in return. But he'd learned the hard way that trust was dangerous. What do you want in exchange? He asked. Sarah smiled, tired and knowing. Just for you 2 to live. That enough? It was. They got Kaya onto one of the horses, Sarah riding behind to keep her steady. Ethan climbed onto another, every movement sending pain shooting through his broken ribs. The 3rd rider, a young man with kind eyes who introduced himself as Thomas, brought up the rear. They rode through the morning, the sun climbing higher, burning off the chill. Kaya drifted in and out of consciousness, her body slack against Sarah's supporting arm. She gonna make it? Ethan asked at one point. If we're lucky, Sarah said. And if she's as stubborn as she looks, she is. Then there's hope. The way station appeared like a mirage, a cluster of buildings in a small valley protected by rocky hills on 3 sides. There were corrals, a barn, a main house with smoke rising from the chimney, signs of life and safety, and things Ethan had almost forgotten existed. Sarah got Kaya inside and laid her on a real bed with actual sheets. She stripped away the filthy hide covering the wound and got to work with water and clean cloth and medicines that smelled sharp and medicinal. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching, feeling useless. You can help by not passing out on my clean floor, Sarah said without looking up. Thomas, get him cleaned up and fed. Thomas guided Ethan to another room, sat him down, and started tending to his injuries with surprising gentleness. The broken nose got straightened, that hurt worse than breaking it, and bound. The ribs got wrapped tight, The cuts got cleaned and bandaged. You look like you went through a war, Thomas said. Feels like it. What'd you do to get on Dalton's bad side? Chose the wrong person to care about. Thomas nodded like that made perfect sense. Sarah says that's usually the right choice, though. Sarah seems like a smart woman. She is. Saved my life when I was younger. Found me half dead in the desert. Took me in. Gave me a purpose. He finished wrapping Ethan's ribs. That's what she does. Saves strays. Is that what we are? Aren't you? Ethan thought about that. Yeah, they were. Thomas brought him food. Real food. Bread and meat and vegetables. And Ethan ate like he'd never seen a meal before. When he finished, exhaustion hit him like a wall. Sleep, Thomas said. You earned it. Ethan wanted to argue, to check on Kaya, to make sure they were really safe, but his body had other ideas. He was asleep before his head hit the pillow. He woke to twilight filtering through a window. For a moment he didn't know where he was, panic rising in his chest. Then he remembered. The way station. Sarah. Safety. He pushed himself upright, wincing at the protest from his ribs, and made his way down the hall. He found Sarah in the main room, sitting by a fire with a cup of something hot. Kaya? He asked. Sleeping. Fever broke an hour ago. She'll live. The relief was so intense it made him dizzy. He sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet. Living's the easy part. Sarah took a sip from her cup. It's what comes after that's hard. What do you mean? I mean, you two are in trouble. Real trouble. The kind that doesn't just go away. She set down her cup. Dalton's already spreading the story. Says you stole ranch property, attacked him, consorting with the enemy. Your name's Mud, boy. And hers, she shook her head. She was already dead to her people. Now she's dead to yours too. So what do we do? You run, far and fast. Find somewhere nobody knows you. Start over. She leaned forward. I got a place in mind. Valley up north, hidden, hard to reach. Few folks living there, outcasts mostly. They don't ask questions, don't judge, just want to be left alone. You think they'd take us? I think they'd understand you, and that might be close enough. Ethan absorbed that. How do we get there? I'll draw you a map. Give you supplies. Enough to get you started, at least. She paused. But once you leave here, you're on your own. I can't protect you beyond these walls. You've done more than enough. Have I? She looked at him seriously. You know what you're choosing, right? You go with her, you leave everything behind. Family, name, future, all of it. I know. And you're sure? Ethan thought about his father's face, his mother's tears, the ranch that would never be his. Thought about the life he was supposed to want. Respectable, predictable, safe. Then he thought about Kaya, fighting to live despite everything. Thought about the way she'd looked at him in the cave, in the trading post, by the fire. Thought about who he was when he was with her. Braver, truer, more himself than he'd ever been. Yeah, he said. I'm sure. Sarah nodded slowly. Then I'll help you. But not because I think it'll be easy. Because I think it'll be worth it. She stood, walked to a cabinet, and pulled out a rolled parchment. This is the valley. It's a week's ride from here, maybe more depending on weather and how often you need to rest. Path's dangerous. That's why nobody bothers the folks up there. Ethan took the map, studied it. The route wound through mountains, following rivers and hidden passes. Thank you, he said again. Stop thanking me and start planning. You leave in 2 days. That'll give her time to get strong enough to travel. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation and healing. Kaya woke the morning after they arrived, weak but alert. Sarah kept her in bed, forcing food and medicine down her throat despite her protests. I can walk, Kaya insisted on the second day. You can barely sit up, Sarah replied. I'm fine. You're stubborn. There's a difference. But she was getting stronger. The infection was receding, the fever gone. Color was coming back to her face. When Ethan visited her room that evening, she was sitting up, the carved bird in her hands. You still have it, she said. Told you I would. I thought maybe you lose it, like everything else. But she was smiling. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. How do you feel? Like someone stabbed me and leave me to die. Oh, wait. She raised an eyebrow. That happened. Good to see you haven't lost your sense of humor. is all I have left. That's not true. No? She looked at him. What I have, Ethan? You have... He stopped, searching for the right words. You have strength and courage. And a future if you want it. Future with you? Running forever? Maybe not forever. Sarah knows a place. A valley where people like us can live. People like us, Kaya repeated softly. You know what that mean? We are same now. Both outcast. Both hated. Yeah. You really give up everything for this? For you, Ethan corrected. And yeah, I really did. She was quiet for a long moment, studying him. Then she reached out and took his hand. Her palm was warm, calloused, real. Then I not let you regret, she said. The morning they were supposed to leave, Sarah pulled Ethan aside. She's not ready, Sarah said bluntly. Medically speaking, she needs another week, maybe 2. We don't have 2 weeks, I know. But I'm telling you anyway. So when things get hard, you'll know it wasn't because you didn't try. Ethan nodded. Understood. Sarah handed him a pack filled with supplies, food, medicine, bandages, a better knife than the bone one Kaya carried. Take care of each other, she said. We will. She looked at him seriously. I mean really take care. Not just surviving, but living, you understand? He thought he did. They left at dawn, 2 horses loaded with supplies, both of them dressed in new clothes Sarah had provided. Kaya still moved carefully, but she could ride without help. As the way station disappeared behind them, Ethan felt the weight of what they were doing settle on his shoulders. They were heading into the unknown with no guarantee of safety, no promise of acceptance, just hope and stubbornness in each other. You scared? Kaya asked. Terrified. Good, me too. That's good? Mean we not stupid, just brave. She looked at him, and despite everything, the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, she smiled. We be brave together. Together, Ethan agreed. They rode north, toward mountains that rose like promises on the horizon, toward a valley they'd never seen, toward a future they'd have to build from nothing. And for the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't running from something. He was running toward it. The mountains grew closer with each passing day, their peaks sharp against the sky like broken glass. The land changed too, fewer open plains, more rocks and scrub pine, the air turning cooler as they climbed in elevation. Ethan's ribs ached with every breath, and Kaya's movements were still careful, guarded, but they kept pushing forward. On the 3rd day, they saw riders in the distance. Ethan spotted them first, 3 shapes moving along a ridgeline maybe 2 miles east, too far to make out details, but close enough to be trouble. We need to move, he said, keeping his voice low. Kaya followed his gaze. Her face tightened. They look for us? Maybe, or maybe just passing through. You believe that? No. They pushed the horses harder, angling toward a dense stand of trees that offered cover. The riders disappeared from view, but Ethan's shoulders stayed tense, expecting at any moment to hear shouts or gunfire. Nothing came. By nightfall, they'd put miles between themselves and whoever those riders were. They made camp in a narrow ravine. No fire this time, just cold food and colder air. Kaya sat with her back against a rock, picking at the dried meat Sarah had packed. She'd been quiet all day, more than usual. You all right? Ethan asked. Thinking. About? She was silent for a moment. Then, what happened when we get to this valley? We just live there? With strangers? I guess so. And they accept us? Just like that? Sarah said they were outcasts too. People who didn't fit anywhere else. Outcasts still hate, Kaya said softly. Still fear. Still judge. Maybe. But it's better than being hunted. She looked at him in the dimming light. You really think we find peace there? Ethan didn't know how to answer that. Peace felt like a thing from another life, something other people got to have. But he said, I think we find a chance, and that's more than we had before. Kaya nodded slowly, then winced, her hand going to her side. Still hurting? Ethan asked. Always hurt, just different now. She pulled her hand away. Sarah say I have scar, big one. Scars aren't so bad. Easy for you to say. I've got plenty of my own. He touched his nose, still swollen and crooked. This'll never be straight again. Make you look dangerous, Kaya said, and there was something almost teasing in her voice. Yeah? Like you fight bear. I fought Dalton. Close enough. She almost smiled. You lose to Dalton. Thanks for reminding me. Someone have to keep you humble. They fell into comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. Somewhere in the distance, a nightbird called. The stars came out, cold and brilliant. Ethan, Kaya said eventually. Yeah? If we not make it to Valley, if something happen, nothing's going to happen. But if it does, she turned to face him fully. I want you know, I not regret any of it. His throat tightened. Kaya, let me finish. She took a breath. I was dead already. When my people leave me, I was dead. But you make me alive again. Give me reason to fight. She paused. So if I die tomorrow, at least I die free, with someone who see me. Ethan didn't trust his voice, so he just reached out and took her hand. She squeezed back, her grip surprisingly strong. They sat like that until the cold drove them to huddle closer, sharing warmth, sharing silence, sharing something neither of them had words for yet. The next morning brought rain, cold, steady, soaking through their clothes within minutes. They rode through it anyway, following Sarah's map deeper into the mountains. The path was barely visible now, more suggestion than road, winding between rocks and fallen trees. By midday, Kaya was shivering badly despite the layers she'd wrapped around herself. Her lips had a blue tinge that Ethan didn't like. We need to find shelter, he said. Keep going. You're freezing. Fine. You're turning blue. She shot him an annoyed look, but she didn't argue further. They found an overhang that kept off most of the rain and stopped to rest. Ethan got Kaya wrapped in the driest blanket they had and dug through their supplies for food. This is miserable, he said, biting into soggy bread. You want to go back? No, just stating facts. Kaya pulled the blanket tighter. My people have saying, storm makes strong root. That's supposed to make me feel better? Maybe little bit. It doesn't. She laughed, sharp and quick. You are terrible at suffering. I'm doing my best. Your best is complaining? Pretty much. She shook her head, but she was smiling. It amazed him how she could do that, find humor in the worst moments, make light of things that should have crushed her. The rain didn't stop. They waited out the worst of it, then kept moving, both of them soaked and miserable, but refusing to quit. The path climbed higher, the air getting thinner, making every breath feel earned. They crested a ridge just as the sun was setting, and Ethan pulled his horse to a stop. Below them, spread out like something from a dream, was a valley. It was smaller than he'd imagined, maybe a few miles across, surrounded on all sides by steep mountains. A river ran through the center, silver in the fading light, and scattered along its banks, smoke, buildings, signs of life. That's it, Ethan said. Kaya stared down at the valley, her expression unreadable. Looks so small. You disappointed? I don't know yet. She glanced at him. We go down? Yeah, while we still have light. The descent was treacherous, the path steep and slick from rain. Twice Kaya's horse stumbled, and Ethan's heart stopped until she got it under control. But they made it to the valley floor just as full dark set in. Up close, the settlement looked rougher than it had from above. The buildings were a mix of log cabins and canvas tents, haphazard and temporary looking. A few people moved between them, carrying water or firewood, but they stopped when they saw strangers approaching. An older man stepped forward, weathered and cautious. Help you? Sarah Tomlin sent us, Ethan said. Said we might find a place here. The man's expression didn't change. Sarah sends a lot of people. Not all of them stay. We're not looking for charity. We'll work. What kind of work you do? I'm good with horses, cattle, building, whatever you need. The man's gaze shifted to Kaya. His eyes narrowed slightly, taking in her features, her clothing. And her? She's with me, Ethan said firmly. I can see that. Question is, what's she running from? Kaya lifted her chin. Same thing he run from, people who want us dead. The man was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, My name's Marcus Webb. I run things here, such as they are. He jerked his head toward the settlement. We got rules, simple ones. You work, you eat, you cause trouble, you leave. You bring danger to this valley, we make you leave. Understood? Understood, Ethan said. Good. There's a cabin at the end of the row, been empty since the Hendersons moved on. You can use it, but you pull your weight starting tomorrow. We will. Marcus nodded, then walked away without another word. A few of the others lingered, staring at them with open curiosity or thinly veiled suspicion. Ethan felt Kaya tense beside him. Friendly place, she muttered. Give it time. How much time? However long it takes. They found the cabin Marcus had mentioned. It was small. One room, dirt floor, a stone fireplace that looked like it hadn't been used in months. But it had a roof and 4 walls, and after days of sleeping on the ground, it felt like a palace. Ethan got a fire going while Kaya collapsed onto the single rough-hewn bed. She was asleep before the flames caught, her breathing deep and even. He sat by the fire, warming his hands, letting the exhaustion seep into his bones. They'd made it. Against all odds, against all reason, they'd actually made it. Now came the hard part. The next morning, Marcus put them to work immediately. Ethan was sent to help repair a fence that kept the settlement's small herd of goats contained. It was simple work, mindless, and his hands remembered the rhythm of it from years on his father's ranch. The man working beside him, a quiet, rail-thin fellow named Samuel, didn't say much, but he wasn't hostile either, just indifferent, which felt like a step up from suspicion. You know much about this place? Ethan asked after a while. Samuel shrugged. Enough. How long you been here? 2 years, give or take. You like it? Samuel considered that. It's not jail. It's not dead. So, yeah, I like it fine. Fair enough, Ethan thought. Kaya had been assigned to help with food preparation, working alongside a handful of women near the central fire pit. Ethan could see her from where he worked, and he noticed how the women kept their distance, talking around her but not to her. She noticed too. He could tell by the set of her shoulders, the way she kept her eyes down, focused on the work. By midday, his ribs were screaming and his hands were raw. He took a break, drinking water from a communal bucket, and that's when he heard the raised voices. 2 men were arguing near one of the cabins, their voices carrying across the settlement. Ethan couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, angry, escalating. Then one of them shoved the other. Marcus appeared out of nowhere, stepping between them. Enough, he said, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Both men backed off immediately, though they kept glaring at each other. You know the rules, Marcus continued. You got a problem, you talk it out. You swing a fist in this valley, you're gone, both of you. The men mumbled something that might have been apologies and walked away in opposite directions. Samuel had come up beside Ethan. That's how it works here, he said quietly. Marcus keeps the peace. Nobody wants to go back out there. He nodded toward the mountains. So we behave. What about people who can't behave? Ethan asked. They don't last long. That night, Ethan and Kaya sat in their cabin, eating the simple stew that had been distributed to everyone. It was thin, mostly vegetables and a little bit of tough meat, but it was hot and filling. How was your day? Ethan asked. Kaya made a non-committal sound. They hate me. They don't hate you, they just don't know you. Same thing. It's not. She set down her bowl. They look at me like I am snake, like I bite them if they get too close. Give them time to... How much time? She looked at him frustrated. How long I pretend I not see. How long I smile and work and hope they stop hating what I am. Ethan didn't have an answer for that. Because she was right. He'd seen it too, the way people looked at her. The way conversation stopped when she approached. The way they treated her like a problem they hadn't asked for. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Not your fault. Feels like it is. You not make them this way. They already broken, just like everyone else. She went back to eating, the conversation over, but the tension lingered in the air between them. The days fell into a pattern. Work from dawn until dusk. Eat communal meals, sleep in the small cabin. Repeat. Slowly, incrementally, things got easier. Ethan's ribs healed. Kaya's wound faded to an angry pink scar. The work became routine. They learned the rhythm of the valley, the unspoken rules, the hierarchy. But the distance remained. People tolerated them, but didn't welcome them, spoke to them when necessary, but never lingered. It was better than being hunted, but it was lonely in a way Ethan hadn't expected. 3 weeks in, he was working in the makeshift barn when Marcus approached. "Need to talk to you," Marcus said. Ethan set down the shovel he'd been using. "All right." Marcus leaned against a post, studying him. "You've been working hard. No complaints on that front. But some folks are getting nervous. About your girl." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She hasn't done anything. I know. But that doesn't change how people feel." Marcus sighed. "Look, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's reality. Folks here, they came from places where people like her, where her people were the enemy. Hard feelings don't just disappear because you change locations. So what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you be patient and you keep her close. Don't give anyone a reason to cause trouble." "She's not the one who'd cause trouble." "Maybe not, but she's the one they'd blame for it." Ethan wanted to argue, to defend Kaya, to tell Marcus he was wrong, but he knew Marcus was just being honest, and honesty, however ugly, was better than lies. "Understood," Ethan said. That night he told Kaya about the conversation. She listened without interrupting, her face carefully blank. "So I am problem," she said when he finished. "No, their fear is the problem." "Same thing. Kaya is fine." She stood, pacing the small space. "I know this happened. I know how people are, but I think—" She stopped, swallowed. "I think maybe here be different. Stupid, I know." "It's not stupid." "Yes, it is." She turned to face him. "We run from hate. We find new place, but hate follow us. Because hate, not about place, is about people. And people bring hate everywhere, so not everyone, not enough people." She sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. "I am tired, Ethan. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving I am human. Tired of—" Her voice cracked. "Tired." He moved to sit beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I know." "Do you? Really?" "Maybe not exactly, but yeah, I'm tired too." They sat in silence. Outside, someone was playing a fiddle, the notes carrying on the cool night air. It was a sad tune, lonesome and aching. "What we do?" Kaya asked quietly. "We keep going. That's all we can do." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "You are a stubborn person. Takes one to know one." "True." The fiddle kept playing and they sat there together, two people who didn't quite fit anywhere, trying to make peace with that fact. A week later, everything changed. It started with a woman named Ellen, who'd been one of the ones keeping her distance from Kaya. She approached the cabin one evening carrying a basket. "I brought bread," she said, awkward and stiff. "Made extra." Kaya stared at her, surprised. "Thank you." Ellen nodded, set the basket down, and turned to leave. Then she stopped. "My daughter," she said without looking back. "She was sick last winter, real sick. The fever—" She swallowed. "Your people, they have medicine, plant medicine. I heard stories." "Yes," Kaya said carefully. "If I describe symptoms, could you tell me what might help? Just in case it happens again." Kaya was quiet for a moment, then, "Come inside, I show you." Ellen hesitated, then stepped into the cabin. Ethan watched from where he'd been chopping wood as the two women bent over Kaya's small collection of plants and herbs, talking in low voices. Ellen left 20 minutes later, clutching a small pouch Kaya had given her. She didn't say thank you, but her face was softer than it had been. The next day, another woman came. Then a man asking about a remedy for his horse's infected hoof. Then someone else wanting to know about edible plants in the area. Word spread. Kaya knew things: plant medicine, hunting signs, how to read weather in the clouds, practical knowledge that had value here. People started talking to her. Not warmly, not quite friendly, but talking, asking, listening. "You're becoming popular," Ethan said one night. Kaya shook her head. "They not like me. They just need me. Different thing." "Is it though?" "Yes." But she didn't sound entirely convinced. Another week passed. The work continued. The valley settled into autumn, the air turning crisp, the leaves on the few trees beginning to change color. Ethan was hauling water one afternoon when he noticed a commotion near the center of the settlement. People were gathered, talking in urgent voices. He set down the buckets and walked over.
Said they're 3 days out, maybe less. How many? Dozen at least, maybe more. Marcus stood in the center, his face grim. When he saw Ethan, he waved him over. Trouble coming, Marcus said without preamble. Got word from a trader passing through. There's a group heading this way. Rough types. Looking for someone. Ethan's stomach dropped. Who? Didn't get a name, but the description... Marcus looked at him seriously. Young cowboy, traveling with a native girl. Sound familiar? Everything went cold. They followed us. Looks like. How did they even find us? Money buys information, and somebody always talks. Marcus crossed his arms. Question is, what are we going to do about it? We'll leave, Ethan said immediately. Tonight. We won't bring trouble to you. Too late for that. They're already coming, and if you run now, they'll just follow, probably track you right back here anyway. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Besides, I don't like the idea of handing you over. Sets a bad precedent. So what then? So we prepare. We've dealt with raiders before. We can deal with this. These aren't just raiders, they're men with guns looking to take something that isn't theirs, Marcus interrupted. Been dealing with that particular problem my whole life. This ain't different. Samuel spoke up from the crowd. He's right. We stand together, we got a chance. Others murmured agreement. Not everyone. Ethan could see some faces that looked worried, even resentful. But enough. You don't have to do this, Ethan said. We're not your problem. You live here. You're one of us, Marcus said firmly. That's how it works. Kaya appeared at Ethan's side, breathless like she'd been running. What happened? Men coming, Ethan said, looking for us. Her face went pale. How many? Dozen? We fight? We fight, Marcus confirmed. She nodded slowly. Then I help. I know how to fight. I don't doubt it, Marcus said. All right, everyone, we got work to do. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. They fortified the settlement as best they could, building barricades, stockpiling weapons, drilling defensive positions. It wasn't much, but it was something. Ethan worked alongside the others, digging trenches, moving supplies. He caught glimpses of Kaya doing the same, her movements careful but determined. On the second night, Ellen approached her again. My daughter, Ellen said quietly. She asked about you, wanted to know why you talk different. What you tell her? Kaya asked. Told her you were from far away, that you're helping keep us safe. Ellen paused. She said you must be brave. Kaya didn't know what to say to that. Anyway, Ellen continued, just wanted you to know. Not everyone here is afraid of you. After she left, Kaya sat on the cabin steps for a long time, staring at nothing. Ethan found her there. You all right? I don't know, she said honestly. These people, they fight for us. Maybe die for us. Why? Because it's right. Since when people care about right? Since they decided to. He sat beside her. I think Marcus meant what he said. We're one of them now. We barely hear month. Doesn't matter. Sometimes belonging doesn't take long. It just happens. She looked at him. You believe that? I'm starting to. The men arrived on the morning of the 4th day. They came riding in formation, armed and organized, led by someone Ethan recognized even at a distance. His father's foreman, a hard man named Carter, who'd never liked Ethan much. The settlement's defenders were already in position. Marcus stood at the front, Ethan and Samuel beside him. Kaya had wanted to be there too, but Marcus had convinced her she'd be more useful coordinating the second line. Carter pulled his horse to a stop about 50 yards out. His eyes found Ethan immediately. Cole, he called out, we're here for you and the girl. Come peaceful, nobody gets hurt. Not interested, Ethan called back. Wasn't asking. Your father wants a word with you. Tell him I'm done taking orders. Carter's expression hardened. Don't make this difficult, boy. We got numbers. We got weapons. You hand her over, we'll let the rest of these folks be. She's not property to hand over. She's the enemy, and you're a traitor for protecting her. Then I guess I'm a traitor, Marcus spoke up. You heard him. Girl's under our protection.
You want her? You go through all of us.
Carter looked at the assembled defenders. Maybe 20 people, armed with a mix of rifles, pistols, and farming tools. Not much against a dozen experienced riders, but enough to make things costly. "This is your last chance," Carter said. "No," Marcus replied. "This is yours. Turn around. Go home. Tell whoever sent you that these people aren't for sale." Carter's hand moved toward his gun. Everything happened fast after that. Marcus was faster. His rifle came up and fired, the shot cracking through the morning air. It hit the ground inches from Carter's horse, sending up a spray of dirt. The horse reared, nearly throwing its rider. "Next one won't miss," Marcus said calmly. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Carter's men drew their weapons. "Take cover," Marcus shouted. Ethan dove behind the barricade as gunfire erupted. The world became noise and smoke and the smell of burning powder. He came up with his rifle, found a target, fired, missed, fired again. The settlement defenders returned fire in ragged volleys, forcing Carter's men to scatter. It wasn't organized, wasn't pretty, but it was enough to keep them from advancing. Ethan saw Samuel go down, clutching his arm, saw Marcus reload with practiced efficiency and drop one of the riders from his horse. Saw the whole chaotic mess of it and wondered how anyone survived battles like this. Then the gunfire stopped, not because the fight was over, but because Carter's men had pulled back out of range, regrouping. Ethan used the lull to check his rifle. 3 rounds left. Not enough. Not nearly enough. "Anyone hit bad?" Marcus called out. Samuel raised his good hand. "Just winged." "Anyone else?" A few others reported minor injuries, but nothing fatal. They'd been lucky. So far. Ethan looked toward the second defensive line where Kaya was supposed to be. He couldn't see her. Panic spiked through him until he spotted movement. She was helping reload weapons, moving between defenders with calm efficiency. Carter's voice rang out again. "You had your chance. Now we do this the hard way." They came at the settlement from 2 sides this time, a pincer movement meant to split the defenders. It was smart. It was going to work. Marcus saw it too. "Fall back to the second line, Sharabras," he ordered. "Fighting retreat." The defenders pulled back in stages, some covering while others moved. It was messy and desperate, but they made it to the second barricade without losing anyone. Kaya was there, rifle in hand, her face set with grim determination. "You all right?" Ethan asked as he dropped beside her. "Still breathing." "That's something." She gave him a sharp look. "This is my fault." "No, it's not. They come for me. People get hurt because of me." "They come because they're bastards," Ethan corrected. "That's not on you." Before she could respond, Carter's men attacked again. This time they dismounted, using the abandoned buildings for cover, advancing methodically. These weren't just ranch hands anymore. They were fighting like soldiers. The battle became a grinding thing, trading shots across 30 yards of open ground. Every bullet counted. Every miss felt like failure. Ellen was near Ethan, firing with surprising accuracy. "I got kids here," she muttered between shots. "They're not taking this place." A bullet whined past Ethan's ear, close enough to feel. He ducked, came back up, aimed at movement behind a barrel, fired. The movement stopped. He didn't let himself think about what that meant. Time stopped having meaning. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. His ears rang, his hands shook from adrenaline. The rifle grew hot enough to burn. Then he heard Kaya's voice, sharp and urgent. "They flank east side." Ethan looked. She was right. 3 of Carter's men had worked their way around, were coming at them from the blind side. "Samuel! Marcus! East!" Ethan shouted. But Samuel was already moving, limping on his wounded arm, bringing his rifle to bear. Marcus shifted position, covering the new angle. It wasn't enough. The flanking group was too close, moving too fast. Kaya stood up. "What are you doing?" Ethan grabbed for her, but she was already moving, running toward the eastern edge with her rifle raised. She fired 3 times in quick succession. 2 men went down. The third dove for cover. Then she did something that stopped Ethan's heart. She started shouting in her own language, loud, clear, carrying across the settlement. Her voice was different, formal somehow, like she was reciting something ancient. Carter's men froze, staring at her. She switched to broken English, still shouting. "I am Kaya of the Red Canyon people. I claim sacred right, my life for theirs." She gestured at the settlement. "You want me?"
You face me, not them. Kaya, no. Ethan started toward her. Marcus grabbed his arm. Wait. She's going to get herself killed. She's giving us a chance. Carter pushed forward from his position. What the hell are you talking about? Kaya stood in the open, exposed, weapon lowered. Your fight is with me. Old law says I can demand single combat. You accept. Everyone else lives. You're insane, Carter said. Maybe, but you know the law. Your people know it too. You refuse. You are coward. You accept. You get what you want. Me dead. Him broken. She jerked her head toward Ethan. Or maybe I win. Maybe I kill you. Then debt paid. Everyone goes home. Carter looked uncertain for the first time. That's not... We don't follow your laws. Your grandfather did. I see mark on your rifle. Red Canyon Treaty mark. Kaya's voice was steady, commanding. You carry that weapon. You honor that treaty, which means you honor this. Ethan couldn't breathe. Kaya was gambling everything on some old agreement, some law that might not even matter anymore. But Carter's men were muttering among themselves, looking at their leader, waiting. Carter's jaw worked. Fine. You want single combat? You got it. No! Ethan broke free from Marcus, ran to Kaya. You can't do this. She looked at him with something sad and certain in her eyes. His only way. There's always another way. Not this time. She touched his face, gentle. You give me life back. Let me use it how I choose. Kaya, if I die, you live. You keep going. Promise me. I can't... Promise. His vision blurred. I promise. She smiled. Liar. But I love you for trying. It was the first time either of them had said it. The words hung in the air between them, precious and terrible. I love you too, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I know. She kissed him, quick, fierce. Then she pulled away and walked into the center of the open ground. Carter approached from the other side, pulling a long knife from his belt. Knives? He asked. Kaya drew her small bone knife. Knives. They circled each other, both limping from old wounds, both exhausted from the fight. It wasn't a fair match. Carter was bigger, stronger, trained. But Kaya moved like water, like something wild that had learned to survive. Carter struck first, a fast slash that would have gutted her if it connected. Kaya twisted away, used his momentum to get inside his guard, scored a line across his ribs. He grunted, stumbled back. They circled again. Ethan couldn't watch but couldn't look away. Every movement Kaya made was desperate, using speed instead of strength, trying to wear Carter down. But she was already tired, already hurt. Carter caught her with a kick that sent her sprawling. She rolled, barely avoided the knife that buried itself in the ground where her head had been. Came up swinging, caught Carter across the face. Blood sheeted down his cheek. They were both bleeding now, both slowing. Carter charged, bullying into her, knocking her down. His knife came up. Kaya caught his wrist with both hands. They struggled, the blade hovering inches from her throat. She was losing. Ethan could see it. Carter was too strong, too heavy. Then Kaya did something unexpected. She stopped fighting against the knife and jerked Carter forward, using his own weight. He fell, off balance. She twisted, brought her knee up hard into his gut. He gasped, knife falling from his grip. Kaya grabbed it. For a moment they were frozen. Kaya on top, Carter's own blade pressed to his throat, both of them panting. Yield, Kaya said. Carter's eyes were wide with shock and something that might have been respect. I yield. She held the position a moment longer, making sure everyone saw. Then she stood, stepped back, and threw the knife to the ground. Combat done, she announced. Debt paid. You go. Now. Carter pushed himself up slowly. His men were already backing toward their horses, looking rattled. Whatever they'd expected, it wasn't this. This isn't over, Carter said, but there was no heat in it. Yes, Kaya said quietly. It is. Carter looked at Ethan. Your father's going to hear about this. Let him, Ethan said. I'm done caring what he thinks. Carter nodded slowly, then mounted his horse. His men followed suit. They rode out without looking back, a dozen men defeated by a half-dead girl who refused to quit. When they were gone, the settlement erupted. People cheering, crying, laughing with relief and disbelief. Samuel was pounding Ethan on the back. Ellen was hugging anyone within reach. Ethan pushed through the crowd to Kaya. She was standing alone, swaying slightly, her face gray. Blood ran from a cut on her arm, another on her side where her old wound had reopened. "Hey," he said softly. She looked at him. "We alive?" "Yeah, we're alive." Her legs buckled. He caught her, held her up. "I am tired," she whispered. "I know, me too." Marcus appeared with medical supplies. "Let's get her inside." They carried her to the cabin, laid her on the bed. Marcus cleaned and bound her wounds while Ethan held her hand, watching every breath to make sure she kept taking them. "She's tough," Marcus said. "Seen a lot of fighters. Never seen anyone fight like that, though." "She's—" Ethan's voice caught. "She's everything." Marcus gave him a knowing look. "Yeah, I figured." When he left, Ethan sat beside Kaya, still holding her hand. Her eyes were closed, but her breathing was steady. "You're an idiot," he said quietly. "You know that?" "I know," she murmured without opening her eyes. "Could have gotten yourself killed." "Was going to anyway." "This way, I choose how." "Don't ever do that again." "Can't promise that." "Kaya," she opened her eyes, looked at him seriously. "You want me to lie? Say I never risk myself again?" "I can't. Not if it mean keeping you safe. Not if it mean doing what's right. What's right is you staying alive. What's right is both of us staying alive. Both of us free." She squeezed his hand weakly. "I not sorry, would do again." He wanted to argue, to make her promise impossible things, but he knew her well enough now to know it wouldn't work. She was who she was, fierce and stubborn and willing to die for the things that mattered. It was part of why he loved her. "Fine," he said. "But next time, at least tell me the plan first." There was no plan, just hope. Hope's a terrible plan. Worked, though. He couldn't argue with that. She fell asleep holding his hand, and he sat there in the gathering dusk, listening to her breathe, feeling the weight of everything they'd survived settling into his bones. The next days were strange. The settlement felt different, looser somehow, like something had shifted. People who'd kept their distance before started nodding greetings, starting conversations. Ellen brought meals. Samuel offered to teach Ethan better shooting technique. Others just accepted them. Kaya noticed it too. "They different now," she said one evening. "Yeah. Because I fight? Because you fought for them. Big difference." She considered that. Maybe people not so bad. When they see you, really see you. Took them long enough. Better late than never. Over the following weeks, Kaya healed again. Slower this time, her body exhausted from too many wounds too close together. But she healed. And as she did, she became part of the settlement's fabric in ways that surprised both of them. She taught Ellen and others about plant medicine, showed Samuel tracking techniques, helped organize food storage for winter. People sought her out, asked her advice, treated her like I belong, she said one night, wonder in her voice. "You do belong," Ethan said. "Here? Really? Really?" She was quiet for a moment, then, "What about you? You belong?" Ethan thought about that. He'd spent his whole life trying to belong somewhere, on his father's ranch and his crew, in a world that had rules he'd never quite fit. And he'd failed at all of it. But here, in this rough settlement full of outcasts and misfits, doing simple work with people who didn't care where he came from. "Yeah," he said, "I think I do." Winter came early that year, snow falling in heavy curtains that turned the valley white and quiet. The settlement hunkered down, every cabin packed with people sharing heat and food and stories. Ethan and Kaya's cabin stayed just the two of them, but people visited often. Ellen brought her daughter to learn plant names. Marcus stopped by to play cards and complain about the weather. Samuel came to argue about the best way to cure venison. It felt like family, but better, chosen instead of obligated. One evening in deep winter, Kaya stood at the window watching snow fall. Ethan came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She leaned back against him. "Thinking about before. My people, your people, how we were taught to hate. And And I wonder, what if someone had just chosen different long ago? What if instead of hate, they choose to see each other, really see? Would have saved a lot of pain. But then we not be here, not like this. She turned in his arms to face him. Maybe pain necessary. Maybe without it, we never learn to choose better. That's a dark thought. But true one, I think. She touched his face. We both had to lose everything to find this. Worth it? He didn't even hesitate. Yeah, worth it. She smiled. Good, because I have something to tell you. Something in her tone made his heart skip. What? I am. She paused, searching for words, then switched to her own language, spoke a phrase he didn't understand, but that sounded important. I don't. She placed his hand on her stomach. There is child, our child. The world stopped. He couldn't finish the sentence. Yes. Her eyes were bright, nervous. You happy? Happy didn't cover it. Joy, terror, wonder, fear, all of it crashed over him at once, too big to contain. Yeah, he managed. I'm happy. She exhaled, relief flooding her face. Good, because I'm terrified. Me too. They stood there holding each other, the snow falling outside, a future neither of them had planned for suddenly real and immediate. What if I'm a terrible father? Ethan asked. Then you learn, like everything else. What if the world still hates us, hates them? Then we teach them different. Her hand covered his where it rested on her stomach. This child, they will be neither your people nor mine. They will be new. Better, maybe, if we do it right. And if we don't, then we fail trying. But we try. That what matter. He pulled her closer, pressed his face into her hair. I love you, he said. I know. You tell me every day. I'll tell you every day for the rest of my life. Good. Don't stop. They stayed like that while the snow fell and the fire crackled and the future grew inside her, small and fragile and full of impossible promise. Spring came slowly, ice melting into rushing streams, the valley floor turning green. Kaya's belly swelled, making her movements careful, changing the way she stood and walked. The settlement prepared for the child like it was theirs. Ellen made blankets, Samuel carved a cradle, Marcus organized hunting parties to stock food for when Kaya couldn't work. They excited, Kaya observed one day. First baby born here, Marcus explained, feels like hope. And it did. After a winter of just surviving, the promise of new life felt like permission to think beyond the next day, the next week. To think about futures. Ellen pulled Ethan aside one afternoon. You know anything about delivering babies? Absolutely nothing. Good. Me neither, she grinned. We'll figure it out. They did, though not smoothly. When Kaya's time came on a hot summer evening, it was messy and terrifying and took hours that felt like days. Ellen and two other women who'd had children coached her through it while Ethan paced outside, listening to her cries and hating that he couldn't help. She's strong, Marcus said, sitting with him. She'll make it. You don't know that? No, but I believe it. And sometimes that's enough. When the baby finally came, a girl, small and red and screaming with outrage, Ethan felt something in his chest crack wide open. Kaya was exhausted, sweat-soaked, but when they placed the baby in her arms, she smiled like the sun breaking through clouds. She beautiful, Kaya whispered. Ethan knelt beside the bed, looked at his daughter's tiny face. She's perfect. No. Kaya touched the baby's hand, watched tiny fingers curl around hers. Not perfect. Perfect is boring. She is real. That better. The baby had Kaya's dark eyes and Ethan's stubborn chin. Her skin was somewhere between both of theirs. Not quite either. Entirely her own. What do we call her? Ethan asked. Ethan. Kaya thought for a moment. Then, Hope. In my language, she spoke a word that sounded like water over stones. Mean new beginning. Fresh start. Hope, Ethan repeated. It felt right. Yeah. Hope. The settlement celebrated with more enthusiasm than the occasion probably warranted, but nobody cared.
There was music and dancing and food shared freely. People took turns holding the baby, marveling at her tiny perfection. Ellen's daughter, maybe 6 years old, stared at Hope with wide eyes. "She's so small." "You were that small once," Ellen said. "Really? Really?" The girl touched Hope's hand gently. "Can I help take care of her?" "We'd like that," Kaya said. Watching the girl's face light up, watching the settlement gather around this new life like it mattered to all of them, Ethan felt something shift in his understanding of the world. Family wasn't blood. It was choice.
Community wasn't where you came from, it was where you decided to belong. And home wasn't a place. It was people who saw you and chose to stay anyway. Late that night, after everyone had left and the cabin was quiet, Ethan sat by the bed watching Kaya nurse their daughter. The lamplight caught them both, soft and golden. "You thinking loud," Kaya said without looking up, just taking it in. "What you see?" "Everything I never knew I wanted." She smiled. "You always so serious now."
"I'm a father. I'm allowed to be serious." "You were serious before. Now you just have excuse." Hope made a small sound, content and sleepy. Kaya shifted her gently, and Ethan marveled at how natural she looked doing this, like she'd been a mother forever instead of hours. "You scared?" he asked. "Terrified," she admitted. "But also, not? She is here. She is real. Now we just do our best." "What if our best isn't good enough?" "Then we try harder, learn more, ask for help." She looked at him seriously. "We not alone, Ethan, not anymore. We have people now. Community. That means something." He thought about that. Thought about Marcus teaching him to shoot better, Ellen sharing medicine knowledge with Kaya, Samuel showing him how to track. All the small ways people had helped them become better versions of themselves. "Yeah," he said, "it does." Hope fell asleep. Her tiny face relaxed, completely trusting. Kaya laid her in the cradle Samuel had made, tucking the blanket Ellen had woven around her. "You want to know something funny?" Kaya said. "What?" "When my people leave me to die, I was so angry. I curse them. I curse the world. I think, why I have to suffer for nothing." She looked at Hope sleeping. "But if they not leave me, I never find you. Never have her. Never learn that pain can lead to something better." "That doesn't make what they did right." "No, but maybe it means pain not wasted. We take it, we learn from it, we build something new." Ethan moved to stand beside her, both of them looking down at their daughter. "What do we teach her?" he asked. "About us. About where we came from." "We teach her truth," Kaya said, "that world can be cruel, that people hate what they fear, but also that love's stronger than hate, that choosing kindness take more courage than choosing violence." She paused. "We teach her that she not have to be what anyone expect. She can be herself. And if people hate her for what she is, then we teach her to stand tall anyway, like her mother." She smiled slightly. "Like her father." "I wasn't very tall when we met." "No. You were broken boy pretending to be strong." She took his hand, "But you became strong, real strong, by choosing to see past what you taught to hate, by choosing to love what world tell you to fear. You made that easy. Liar, I made it hard. I fight you every step." "Okay, yeah, you did." She laughed quietly. "But you stay anyway. You are stubborn. Takes one to know one." "True." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Hope sleep, watching the future breathe. Time moved differently after that. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. Hope grew, first smiling, then sitting up, then crawling, then walking on unsteady legs that constantly surprised her. The settlement grew too, new people arriving, outcasts finding their way to this hidden valley where judgment mattered less than contribution. Ethan built an addition to their cabin, then helped others do the same. Kaya started teaching younger people about medicine and tracking, knowledge that would have died with her if she'd stayed in that cave. They had fights about how to raise hope, about money, about whose turn it was to deal with night crying. Normal things, human things. But they also had quiet evenings by the fire, had mornings waking to Hope's laughter, had the profound comfort of being seen completely and loved anyway. One evening, when Hope was nearly 2, Ellen stopped by with news. "Trader came through today," she said,
Said there's talk in the settlements about this place, about how we take in anyone. That a problem? Ethan asked. Opposite. People are interested. Good people who don't fit elsewhere. Thinking of coming. Valley's not that big, Kaya pointed out.
No, but maybe we don't need to stay small. Ellen looked excited. Maybe we could be something bigger, a real town, a place where anyone can start over.
That's a big maybe, Ethan said. But possible? He looked at Kaya. She looked at Hope, playing with wooden blocks on the floor. Possible, Kaya said. If we do it right. That conversation led to more. The settlement, they needed to call it something else now, something official, had a meeting. People argued about expansion, about rules, about how to maintain what made this place special while growing. Marcus proposed calling it Haven, because that's what it is, he said. A haven. For people who need one. The name stuck. Haven grew, slowly at first, then faster. Families came. Single people running from violence or judgment. Mixed couples like Ethan and Kaya who couldn't exist safely anywhere else. People who'd made mistakes and wanted second chances. Not everyone who came stayed. Some couldn't handle the work. Some brought trouble and got asked to leave. But enough stayed that within 5 years, Haven had real streets, a school, a proper trading post. Hope grew up in that place, surrounded by people from everywhere, learning languages and skills and seeing possibilities her parents never had. She was stubborn like her mother, idealistic like her father, and entirely her own person. "She gonna change world," Kaya said one day, watching Hope organize the other children into some complicated game. "Or drive us crazy trying," Ethan said. "Both. Definitely both." More children came. Haven's population grew younger, louder, more alive. And with each child, the old hatreds mattered less. Kids didn't care who their friends' parents were, what color their skin was, where they came from. They just cared about who shared toys and who played fair. "Maybe this how it always should have been," Samuel said one evening. He was older now, graying, but still sharp. "Everyone just mixing, learning from each other." "Took a lot of pain to get here," Ethan said.
Yeah, but pain don't have to be wasted. We learned from it, built something better.
Ethan thought about that often. About the price paid, by him, by Kaya, by everyone who'd fled to Haven seeking safety. The families left behind. The identities abandoned, the scars carried. It wasn't a happy story, not entirely. There was too much loss for that, too much that could never be recovered. But it was a true one, and truth mattered. Years passed. Ethan's hair started showing gray. Kaya's scar faded, but never disappeared. Hope grew into a young woman who asked too many questions and refused to accept easy answers. One day she asked about the carved bird that sat on their mantle, worn smooth by decades of handling. "Where this come from?" Hope asked. Kaya picked it up, turned it over in her hands. "My mother make it, long time ago." "Why a bird?" "Because birds fly free, go anywhere, not trapped by ground or by other people's rules." She handed it to Hope. "She want me to remember, no matter what happened, I can choose my own path." "Did you?" Kaya looked at Ethan. "Yes. Was hard, was painful, but yes." "No regrets?" "Many regrets. I regret pain. I regret people I hurt. I regret I never see my mother again before she die." Kaya's voice was steady but honest. "But I not regret choosing love over hate. Not regret choosing you and your father. Not regret building this life." Hope turned the bird over in her hands. "Can I keep this?" "Is yours now. Pass it to your children someday. Tell them where it come from. Tell them what it mean." "What does it mean?"
It mean freedom is choice.
"It mean love is action.
It mean home is where you build it, not where you born."
Kaya smiled. "And it means sometimes broken things become most beautiful things, because they've been tested, they survived." Hope held the bird carefully, like the precious thing it was. "I'll remember." That evening, after Hope had gone to bed, Ethan and Kaya sat on their porch, watching the stars come out. Haven spread below them, lights flickering in windows, smoke rising from chimneys, the sounds of life and community drifting on the breeze. "You ever wonder how it would have been?" Ethan asked. "If we'd made different choices." "Sometimes, but not often." Kaya leaned against him. "I think we made only choices we could live with. Everything else would have killed us. Maybe not body, but spirit. Yeah. You regret? She asked. Leaving my family? Sometimes. Not becoming who they wanted? Never. They ever come looking? No, I think I was always dead to them. The moment I chose you. He paused. That hurt for a long time. Still does sometimes. But I have a different family now. One I chose. And that matters more. Kaya was quiet for a moment. Then, my people have saying, blood make you related, loyalty make you family. Smart people. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd survived impossible things, watching the life they'd built from ashes and stubbornness. You know what I think about most? Ethan said eventually. What? That cave. That first night. How scared I was. How ready you were to kill me. Kaya laughed. I was not ready. I was dying, but I would try anyway. Exactly. You were dying and you still fought. What choice I had? You could have given up. Lots of people would have. Maybe. But giving up mean they win. Mean pain was for nothing. She turned to look at him. I not give them that. I not let hate win. So you chose love instead? No, I chose life. Love came after, as surprise bonus. He kissed her, still amazed after all these years that he got to do that this fierce, impossible woman had chosen him back. You know what Hope asked me yesterday? Kaya said when they pulled apart. What? She asked if I'm happy. What did you say? I say yes, and she say just yes, not very happy or so happy. And I say just yes, because happy enough, don't need more than that. What'd she say? She say, I want more than enough. I want everything. Kaya smiled. She is young. Still think you can have everything. Maybe she can. We built a place where that's possible. Maybe. Kaya looked out at Haven. Or maybe she learned like we did that everything is actually very small. It is person you love, work that matter, community that see you, that everything. When did you get so wise? When I almost die enough times to learn what important. They sat there as the night deepened, two people who'd lost everything and found it all again in the most unlikely place. Their story wasn't neat or easy. It was full of pain and mistakes and choices that hurt, but it was theirs. And in the end, maybe that was the point. Not to have a perfect story, but a real one. Not to escape pain, but to transform it into something better. Not to forget where you came from, but to refuse to let it define where you went. Years later, when Ethan was old and his hands shook and his memories sometimes blurred, he would still remember that cave. The storm. Kaya's eyes in the darkness, full of hate that slowly, impossibly, turned into something else. He would remember the trading post, the violence, the choice to stand rather than run. He would remember Sarah's kindness, Marcus's tough wisdom, the settlement that became haven, that became home. And he would remember hope, first as a possibility, then as a reality, then as a force of nature that carried their legacy forward into a future they'd never live to see. On his last day, with Kaya beside him and Hope holding his hand, he thought about that scared boy who'd chased cattle into a storm, desperate to prove himself to a father who would never be satisfied. That boy was gone, had died somewhere between the cave and here, replaced by someone stronger, truer, more himself. Was it worth it? Hope asked, tears on her cheeks. Everything you gave up? Ethan looked at Kaya, at Hope, at the life they'd built together. Every single piece, he said, and he meant it. Because some things were worth losing everything for. Love, freedom, the chance to choose your own path even when the whole world said you couldn't. He'd lost a name, a family, a place in the world he'd been born into. But he'd gained himself, and love, and a daughter who would carry forward the lesson that mattered most, that you could take the worst thing that ever happened to you and build something beautiful from the wreckage, that hate didn't have to win, that the future wasn't written by the past, but by the choices you made right now, in this moment, when everything was on the line. And that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was choose love over fear, even when it cost you everything. Ethan closed his eyes, Kaya's hand warm in his, hope's tears falling on his weathered skin. And he thought, I would do it all again. Every painful step, every impossible choice, every moment of doubt and fear and wondering if they'd survive. Because in the end, they hadn't just survived, they'd lived. And they'd built something that would outlast them both. A place where people could be themselves, where love mattered more than heritage, where the future was still being written by people brave enough to choose it. The storm that had nearly killed him had given him everything that mattered, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.